Welcome back now for the news in detail. Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan says Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi's racist jingoism has stalled regional economic growth. Khan said he is committed to welfare-driven development, but India's jingoism is forcing the region to up its defense spending. In an interview with the Wall Street Journal, he said Modi's repressive and illegal actions in occupied Kashmir will have global consequences. Khan said the world does not understand that this can go horribly wrong. Talking about Afghanistan, he said the world should not fear that a peace deal would take us back to square one. He called for the resumption of Afghan peace talks between the United States and the Taliban. The Organization of Islamic Cooperation has expressed concern over India's actions aimed at changing the demography of occupied Kashmir. The OIC contact group on Jammu and Kashmir urged India to stop violence against Kashmiris and lift the curfew imposed in the valley. In a joint statement, the group said Indian actions in occupied Kashmir are inconsistent with international law. It also condemned the arrest of thousands of Kashmiri people and their transportation to prisons outside occupied Kashmir. After a meeting of the group on sidelines of the UN General Assembly session, Pakistan's Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi said Muslim world is united on the Kashmir issue. In the United States, Pakistan, Turkey and Malaysia hold a trilateral meeting in New York to discuss ways to enhance cooperation. Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan, Malaysian Prime Minister Mahathir Mohamad and Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan attended the meeting. The leaders discussed regional and global developments. Earlier, in a bilateral meeting with Malaysian Prime Minister, Khan thanked him for highlighting the Kashmir issue. Malaysia has called for resolving the Kashmir dispute as per United Nations resolutions. Both leaders agreed to enhance cooperation between Islamabad and Kuala Lumpur. Moving on, Beijing says it will hit back forcefully at the US for what it calls direct and unprovoked interference in China's domestic affairs. The statement comes after US Congress officially pushed a bill supporting Hong Kong protesters by putting pressure on China. Foreign Ministry spokesman Zhang Shuang says the bill is a malicious attempt by the US Congress to contain China's development. The US Congress and Senate will vote on the Hong Kong Human Rights and Democracy Act in 2019 in the coming week. If passed, the bill will require Washington to impose sanctions on Chinese officials. Israel's President Reuven Rivlin has asked Benjamin Netanyahu to form a coalition government. Netanyahu and his rival Benny Gantz failed to win enough seats to form a government in elections last week. Incumbent Prime Minister Netanyahu has renewed his call for his challenger Gantz to join him in a coalition. Netanyahu has 6 weeks to forge a majority coalition in Israel's parliament. The 69-year-old leader faces an uphill battle to secure support from at least 61 of 120 lawmakers. Former Army Chief Gantz has ruled out joining with Netanyahu, who is facing criminal indictment. Now, at the United Nations General Assembly, President Hassan Rouhani says Iran won't negotiate under sanctions. Rouhani warned the Gulf region is on the edge of collapse and a single mistake could lead to disaster. This report has more.
World leaders have gathered in New York for the 74th session of the United Nations General Assembly. Addressing the Assembly, President Hassan Rouhani said Iran will respond strongly to any violation of its territorial integrity. He said Iran is committed to its nuclear deal with world powers, but its patience has limits. Rouhani said respecting UN Security Council resolutions can pave the way for talks.
If you are sensitive to the name of the JCPOA, well, then you can return to its framework and abide by the UN Security Council Resolution 2231. Stop the sanctions so as to open the way for the start of negotiations. I would like to make this crystal clear.
He said Iran has a history of maintaining peace in the Persian Gulf. Iran's president invited all countries affected by the developments in the Strait of Hormuz to join a coalition to ensure peace in the region.
The security of the region shall be provided when American troops pull out. Security shall not be supplied with American weapons and intervention. The US, after 18 years, has failed to reduce acts of terrorism.
Rouhani said Iran has eliminated the threat of ISIS with the help of its neighbors.
Moving on, the European Union says the remaining parties to the Iran nuclear deal are committed to preserving the pact. After meeting officials from signatory states, EU Foreign Policy Chief Federica Mogherini said it is becoming difficult to save the deal. The US withdrew from the agreement signed between Iran and the 5 permanent UNSC members and Germany last year. Since then, Washington has imposed increasingly harsh economic sanctions on Tehran. Tehran says it is meaningless to abide by the deal without its benefits. Now, Taliban have said they will attack all rallies, political offices and centers related to the upcoming Afghan presidential elections. In a statement, the group called on the people to reject the process and stay away from all election activity to avoid being targeted. Calling the Afghan government slaves of the United States, Taliban said they will disrupt this stage show. The statement said all major and minor roads of the country will be closed by Mujahideen on election day. It said in case of any casualties, the Kabul government and all those participating in the elections will be responsible. Earlier, foreign Afghan President Hamid Karzai said the elections are bound to plunge Afghanistan deeper into violence. Meanwhile, the UN has endorsed the election, saying voters must be given every opportunity to exercise their constitutional right. In Egypt, over 1,100 protesters have been arrested as calls for President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi's resignation intensify. The government has begun rounding up prominent opposition leaders. Thousands staged demonstrations across the country demanding al-Sisi's resignation in defiance of a government ban. The demonstrations follow accusations of presidential corruption by self-exiled Egyptian businessman Mohammed Ali. Al-Sisi has dismissed the allegations, calling them lies. Such demonstrations are rare in Egypt since the protests were effectively banned after the military staged a coup in 2013. Britain's Prime Minister Boris Johnson has challenged opposition parties to call a vote of no confidence in his government. Speaking in the House of Commons, Johnson said Supreme Court judges were wrong in ruling against the suspension of Parliament. Prime Minister Johnson said Parliament is paralysed and refusing to move on. He said opposition leader Jeremy Corbyn does not trust the British public as he wants to ignore the Brexit referendum results. Opposition Labour Party chief Jeremy Corbyn says the Prime Minister should get a delay to Brexit to win backing for a new election. Britain's Parliament has reconvened after the Supreme Court ruled its suspension by the government was unlawful. France says it cannot host everyone during the worsening migrant crisis in Europe. Speaking in New York, President Emmanuel Macron said there is not enough cooperation in Europe on migration. Macron's comments came ahead of a major parliamentary debate on migration policy. French Parliament will discuss the issue on September 30th and Senate on October 2nd. Macron said France has seen a sharp increase in asylum seekers since 2017. He said tighter European cooperation and quick decisions are the need of the hour. Macron faces an electoral threat from rival over his tax migrant policies. Coming up next in the bulletin after a short break is English couple harvesting trees' tables. Rehabilitating the hurricane's victims. Welcome back. Now moving on to India, where 7 people have died in rain-related incidents in the western city of Pune as downpours battered the city. Rescue teams recovered bodies from 3 different areas of Pune after heavy rain wreaked havoc. Fire brigade officials say 5 people died when a compound wall collapsed in Tangewali colony. They say 4 people are still missing in the incident. The Pune district collector has ordered the closure of all schools in the district. The United Arab Emirates has become the 40th country to send a citizen into space. The Emirati is one of the 3 crew members on a Russian spaceship that lifted off from Kazakhstan. The 35-year-old former fighter jet pilot Hazar al-Mansouri will spend 8 days at the International Space Station. He is the first Arab to visit the ISS. The astronauts will carry out experiments and hold several live space-to-Earth sessions. The new crew's arrival will boost the International Space Station headcount to 9. The Emirati and 2 astronauts from a previous expedition will return to Earth on October 3rd. Authorities in the UAE say Al-Mansouri will host an Emirati food night at the ISS wearing traditional clothes. The timber industry is one of the world's leading drivers of climate change. Much of what it produces is used to make furniture. But what if we could grow tables and chairs straight out of the ground like trees? More in this report.
This is a furniture farm in Derbyshire called Full Grown, where chairs and tables are harvested like food crops. The farm's owners, Gavin and Alice Monroe, say it's their answer to unsustainable furniture manufacturing practices.
So the idea is to grow the tree into the shape that you want, directly from as it grows, graft it together, and then you have one solid piece. It's a kind of Zen 3D printing.
The farm is currently growing 250 chairs and 50 tables. There's money to be made as well. One of the chairs sells for over $12,000, while the tables can cost around $15,000.
But there's so much potential. We just think there's a lot more that we could do, really. But a dining set would be nice. That would be one of the goals.
Yeah,
and then we
definitely.
could see that we've reached one of the goals.
The world has lost 26 million hectares of trees annually each year from 2014 to 2018. That is an area roughly the size of Britain. With the climate crisis spiraling further out of control each day, initiatives like furniture farming may be exactly what the world needs.
The US toy maker Mattel has launched a new line of gender-inclusive dolls. The new toy line, Creatable World, comes with a doll and variety of clothing options with endless styling possibilities for kids. This report will tell you more.
The gender-neutral doll range is customizable with different skin tones and styling options that can easily woo all kids. The doll's kits include funky outfits and hairstyles, allowing children to style toys with short or long hair, a skirt, trousers, or both. Mattel's global head of design, Kim Kalmune, says research shows children don't want their toys to be dictated by gender norms.
There are some clothes that are more feminine presenting, some clothes that are more masculine presenting, and then the kids can combine them and put them together in any way that they want to.
The toy designers aim to redefine gender stereotypes surrounding children and their toys. The dolls have been designed after consultations with American pediatrician Cara Natison.
I was asked to look at the body type of the doll and to put my pediatric brain on and to understand what about this doll was appropriate in terms of size and proportions. And
This toy doll range is for everyone and is available at the price of only $29.
When Hurricane Dorian ravaged the Bahamas and southeastern United States, it left thousands homeless. A music festival organization is taking temporary accommodation skills to the Bahamas to rehabilitate the hurricane victims. How it's being done? What's this report?
Insomniac, the company behind the Electric Daisy Carnival, housed 25,000 people in their luxury festival shift pods. The company is now bringing these air-conditioned, electricity-supplied homes to families in the Bahamas, affected by the tropical Category 5 storm Hurricane Dorian. However, debris, pollution, and the island's rocky limestone bed has slowed the pod's deployment, and they're still being erected.
I don't want to create any similarities, but the smiles on people's faces from one of our events was the same smile on these people's faces when we were erecting these pods. They were so grateful.
The pods are weather resistant and designed to deal with winds of up to 60 miles per hour. Typically being able to house 6 people at festivals, in the storm-hit Bahamas, a family of 11 can live comfortably here as well.
At the festivals, Vegas especially, you know, we create housing, and we have food service, and we have medical service. We literally built a city in Las Vegas. We need to do that in the Bahamas.
The company is trying to bolster its charitable efforts in the Bahamas by setting up a GoFundMe page to raise more money.
In the business story, Asian stock markets have traded mixed amid hopes of the US and China striking a deal. At the UN General Assembly, President Donald Trump said a deal between the US and China could come sooner. With the rise in shares of Chinese tech giant Tencent, Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index rose. Shanghai Composite slipped nearly 1%, while the Shenzhen component also shed nearly 2%. The indices of Japan's Nikkei 225 jumped up 0.22%. The shares of Japanese automakers have also climbed after President Trump hinted at a trade agreement with Tokyo. South Korea's Kospi gained while Australia's ASX 200 slipped. Now let's have a look at the weather update around the world. With the weather update, we come to the end of this bulletin. For more news and updates, keep watching Indus News.